from behind the stand that I'm too small to stand behind. My name's Chi. You can call me Chi. So today I'm going to be talking about impact. Do you ever think about the impact that you have on anything? Actually, before I do this, is anybody here a Bitcoin fan? Might be in trouble. We might have someone who makes a complaint later. Anyway, so do you ever think about the impact that you have? Yes? Yes? The impact that you have. Does anybody want to call out anything that they think of when they're thinking about the impact that they have? Yes. That is a good one, but I was thinking more recycling.
Yeah.
Come on, thing, go. Oh, I know why, because my thing's not plugged in. Good one. Let me do this. Let me put this in here so that my clicker works. I can walk around. I was thinking like recycling and clean energy and vegans and other stuff like that, right? And that. What about the impact of what you do? The thing that you do every day? What? Oh, it was a mistake. We'll hear about that later. What about the impact of what you do? Does anybody think about the impact of the thing that they create? Think about that? Okay. We're going to try to talk about that a little bit about that. So before I introduce yourself, I'm just going to tell you a story. So for me, thinking about impact started when I was in Year 9. When it was 1993. I'm old. And it started with an assignment in geography. I was asked to do an assignment about the environment, and I had no idea what I was going to do as a 13-year-old who did not give a shit about geography whatsoever. And I decided that I would write an essay about how much burgers cost. Now, you've probably seen Cowspiracy. If you haven't, and all the myriad of other documentaries that sort of run along the same lines. They were released in the last 5 years. This was more than 20 years ago, right? So I decided I would write this story about how much a burger really costs. And what I came out with was this essay that was basically saying that it costs a lot more than a Happy Meal, and that there's a lot more to what happens when you make, let's say, large-scale produce for big populations than just what you pay for at the counter. Needless to say, I failed geography anyway, and I decided to become a designer. So I'll introduce myself a little bit more now. So I've been a designer for, I identify as a designer now sometimes. I've been a designer for more than 20 years. What kind of designer, you say? Well, I'm a transdisciplinary designer. I know it's very topical right now. My specialisation is what I would describe as visual communication. So that can be everything from visuals, graphics, illustration, motion, VR, AR, event, experiential, immersives, the whole shebang. And my other specialisation is spatial experiential. So that's designing interactive pieces for spaces. Those are the things that I like to do. The reason that I became a designer was because I thought it was really a great way to change the world in some way. Of course, when I first started as a designer, I was really just a shit kicker for a creative director, and I didn't really change anything except maybe the toilet paper. So fast forward a few years, and I've worked in all different types of roles in design, and had lots of experiences that I'm sure that you're going to talk about in 5 minutes when we talk about mistakes, because I've met plenty of them. I've learned a few things about design and what it means to me. So I thought I'd share them with you. So design means a lot more than just making cool shit, right? So there's been this thing for a long time that design, especially when it comes to digital, is often like, let's just make something cool a lot of the time, like a hoverboard. But that would be cool. Okay, like, be honest. Okay. And the other thing that's really important is that when we design the things that we design, our world, we design our world, it then designs us. This is called ontological design. So we design things and then it designs us and then we design. And it's a very fractal process in nature. Galaxy. And so when this happens, we always have the best of intentions with what we're trying to design. We always try to make things that are going to have some benefit, but they're not always that way. But sometimes we have happy accidents, right? So sometimes we make things that have a happy accident. So I'll tell you a quick story about this. Does anybody know this chair? Armchair wood, chair of the century, most famous chair that's ever been made. Amazing. The background behind this is pretty amazing. So before World War II, Charles and Ray Eames were making like a lot of wood furniture. They were prototyping their perfect plywood moulding process, but they didn't quite get there before the World War II. So what they did was, of course, when World War II broke out, designers didn't have any work and they had to find stuff to do. So most of them offered themselves up to the government in some way to keep their businesses going. And that's what the Eames guys did. And what they were making was sometimes planes, so they were making wooden planes, and then sometimes they were making things like plywood splints for frontline soldiers' legs. And in the process of World War II, when they were doing so much of this, they were actually able to perfect their plywood moulding techniques through prototyping, which is really important when it comes to digital, right? Same thing. And as a result, because they were able to perfect that moulding technique, they came up with armchair wood, which is pretty amazing. Anyway, let's continue. So, happy accidents. So, social media. Interestingly enough, who would have thunk it that a website could turn into what it is today? Happy accident. Maybe. Sean Parker might, I don't know, he said something about it the other week. But my own personal experience with a happy accident, I think, is very, very interesting. So you can see that I'm quite into tattoos. And I was an early user of Instagram. So very, very early, I knew nobody who was using it. And I was like, yeah, post pictures, no one's walking at them. Awesome. But what I did see happen was that prior to Instagram, tattooers would want you to come into the shop before you could look at their books and their artwork. So they didn't like sharing them. Like you couldn't ask for a photograph of something or could you send me something? No, there was none of that. But as Instagram started to kick off, some tattooers started to use it as a way to show their portfolios. And now that has become the way that tattooers do their thing, right? All of them have got Instagram. They all use it very heavily. And in fact, they were probably one of the first groups of people that used it as a marketing tool in that sense, which is quite interesting. So happy accident, don't really think that Instagram thought that was going to happen. And then, so there's the happy accidents, which are awesome, but then there's also unintended consequences. These are things that are unintended and have some dire outcome that is not so great. So again, coming back to Sean Parker, only this month he came out and said basically, he actually said that they thought they did know what they were doing when they started. They knew that it was going to be something big. I call bullshit on that. I don't really think that they did. I don't think that they knew the effect at all it was going to have. Of course they did. How could anyone possibly think that? God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains, or anybody else's for that matter. So that's an interesting unintended consequence. This bench is a very interesting one. Has anybody heard of the Camden bench before? Camden bench. I took this photo in London this year sometime. I saw this at an exhibition that was about design and violence in Ireland, which was really amazing. And the Camden bench was designed to stop people sleeping on benches. You can see very easily what it is. So underneath it, you can also see that you can't actually put anything underneath it. So you can't lay under it. You can't lay on top of it. But by way of doing this very smart thing that they tried to do, they also did something else. There was an unintended consequence that came of this. And that is that nobody sits on them. Design done dumb. All right, design done dumb. All right, one you know all about. No bias. Awesome. The unintended consequences of design. So, the original bikes that they had in Melbourne, the ones that went into the holders, they worked really well. Everybody liked them. Everybody used them properly. But people said, we've got expectations. We want them wherever we want them. We want to be able to put them anywhere we want. Great. So what happens? People start throwing them in the Yarra. Excellent. I don't know if you've seen the video. I'd highly recommend it. Go on YouTube and look up O-bike fishing. There's a guy who did it. And what are people doing with them? They're treating them like this. And it's ridiculous. But design can be used to help stop this type of thing. Okay, so here comes the really controversial one. All right, so this has been on my mind for a few days because Bitcoin's just like electrified right now. It's just going crazy. Oh, I'm going over time, but I don't have that much longer to go. Stop. Okay. So, does anybody know how Bitcoins are made? Do you think you know how they're made? Like, you might know how technically they're made. Do you know what this is?
Coal.
Power plant. This is on the border between China and Tibet. This is a hydroelectric dam. This building is the Bitcoin mine. Inside this building, there's 30,000 computers. They use the water and the hydroelectricity to cool the computers and run them because that's how much energy it takes to create Bitcoins right now. These photos were taken earlier this year. That's the lengths that people are going to build to mine Bitcoins right now. So when whoever thought of Bitcoin first thought of Bitcoin, they were thinking about this fantastic currency that would change the world and get rid of banks. And they sure as shit were not thinking about this. And whether or not this is even, I mean, it's not sustainable now. If you read about the stats, you know, I think it's by 2020, if we keep going the way that we're going with this, just the Bitcoin production is going to use more power than the whole world combined. Not sustainable. We can make more powerful stuff, but it's just going to get harder and harder to make those things. Nonetheless, good example of unintended consequences. So, what am I getting at? What I want you to do is, next time you're making stuff, next time you're building something, ask more questions. Think harder, be more critical, because unless we do that, things are not going to change. This is incredibly important. And just so you know, be really careful. You've got to be careful what you wish for, because otherwise we end up with someone like Trump. Okay? So, if you don't be careful, you end up with impact loads.
What is this place?
My dad says it's like Vegas.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. That's me.